Summer Wells has now been missing for 1 week, and as of today, crews have covered more than 4.5 square miles in their search for the 5-year-old. So she was last seen June 15th walking near her home in the Beach Creek community. And late this afternoon, the Tennessee Bureau.
Hello, and welcome back to Futurekron. Today, I dive into the perplexing case of Summer Wells, a 5-year-old girl from Tennessee who went missing from her home in Rogersville. Stay tuned as I unravel some of the details surrounding Summer's disappearance and why I think the sheriff and the FBI both failed this child. If you're expecting to hear more sadistic details surrounding this child's disappearance, or that some crazy Tennessee mafia was involved, you've come to the wrong place. I'm going to provide you with a simple profile of the child's abductor and the motive, along with his relationship to the family. This is not an exhaustive play-by-play by any means. But before I get started, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more psychic insights, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss a thing. Let's get started. Summer Wells went missing from her home in East Tennessee on June 15, 2021, sparking a massive search in the densely wooded area surrounding the family's home. Her parents believe she was abducted, though the circumstances of her disappearance remain unclear, with authorities not ruling out foul play, but not naming any suspects or persons of interest either. Almost 3 years later, there's still no named suspect in the case, and it is now considered a cold case. The child has never been found. So what happened to 5-year-old Summer? And who's behind her disappearance? Was it her parents who killed her in a fit of rage or a freak accident? Did she simply fall down an old well on the large family property? Or was she abducted right out from under the family's noses, perhaps from the child's basement bedroom, which had easy and private outside access? So let me cut right to the chase and describe what happened to little Summer Wells. I don't see that she was injured and lost. She wasn't killed by her parents or sold into a human trafficking ring. She was kidnapped, plain and simple. Who did it? The initial impression I got was of a trim white male with tightly cut dark brown hair and very sharp features. He appears to be in his 30s to early 40s. The phrase that popped to my mind was Uncle Ronnie, although I believe this man was unrelated to the Wells. Instead, I believe that this man's name could have been Ron or Ronnie or begin with an R, and he would have been a somewhat familiar face to the Wellses and little Summer, which would have made him somewhat trustworthy to her. I can see that little Summer's father would have had a light and friendly conversation with the man about his daughter on a previous occasion, something like, "She's quite the handful" kind of thing. But I am not seeing that he would have sold the child to the man in exchange for drugs, as some theories suggest. No, what I'm seeing is that the man would have been helpful to the family, perhaps doing them a favor, and even some odd jobs around the house for money, including doing some repairs on the roof, which would have required a tall ladder, of course. While I don't think he planned to abduct little Summer at first, he quickly became obsessed with the little girl while he was on the property. As I tap into his thoughts as he drove away from the family's home, I can see that his devious mind was already locked into returning for the little girl. It appears as if it took him at least 3 to 4 weeks of developing a plan and mulling it over before he took action. To double-check myself, I often do a dream vision session where I can get additional information or simply confirm what I'm seeing. Dreams never lie, but they're very weird. I begin from what I believe is Candace's point of view, the child's mother. I can see this man following her in his vehicle. He is known to Candace as a friend of a friend from a neighboring town, but not a close family friend by any means. Just an acquaintance with just enough familiarity for a parent to disregard any internal alarm screaming, "Don't trust this person." He's a little bit off, with some mental illness there. Outwardly friendly, but a little quiet and awkward. But he's good with his hands. He loves to deal in cash and always has a wad of money in his pocket. The man follows Candace home, and once again, there's this "I'll help you out and no worries about money" kind of thing. Candace is grateful and not in the least bit concerned. But the moment she turns her back, the child is gone, stolen. The family was betrayed. From there, I slip into Summer's mind, and I see this man again. I get the impression that he may be of Italian descent and may even have an Italian surname. He exposes himself to me, and I want to run away. With these few psychic clues, I can deduce that this is a child abduction case. The man was known to the family, but not a close friend. He had an underlying criminal mind and perhaps even a criminal record, although he would have appeared to be helpful to the family. This would have ingratiated him with the parents, and this would have built some level of trust that he would have used to lure the child away from her home, just far enough to be grabbed and tossed into a waiting vehicle.
The Wells family lives across the street from a neighboring property. On mirroring mountains, together they can be described as sentinels which sit high over Ben Hill Road. The night Summer went missing, the neighbor swears that she and her 2 children heard a scream shortly before they joined the search for a now missing Summer Wells.
It's there, but you want to forget.
On the watch and hypervigilant. That's how Jody Sue Brown was the very day Summer Wells went missing.
There was no TV, no noise at all.
Jody Sue was in her cabin with her teenage kids, 19 and 14, waiting for anything.
We were kind of hyper alert because of property things that had happened the day before. So we were listening for noise, everything was kind of quiet. While we were out at one point doing survey lines, and there was a flash of a car that went up Candace and Donnie's driveway. Something about it struck me wrong.
She and her family next heard a truck door slamming and dismissed it as their neighbors. The next sound was harder to justify. About an hour and a half before Summer is thought to go missing, Jody Sue, her son, and her daughter heard something far more suspicious. A scream.
Stopped all 3 of us cold.
Jody Sue had been interviewed many times by investigators, bringing up the scream often. But the sheriff doesn't believe the scream is related to the disappearance of Summer Wells.
She's been interviewed numerous times by not only my agency, but the TBI and FBI, and we don't find anything with that complaint or information related to this case.
Through my psychic insights, I see that Summer was alive for 8 days after her disappearance, but I can't bear to remote view her experience in detail. What I will say is that she was not held and tortured by a gang of crazy people, as some mediums and psychics would suggest. I don't see multiple perpetrators or anything like that, just one man. I will say that she was likely forced to take pills, which in addition to the physical abuse would have contributed to her death. But it was also a blessing in disguise, protecting her from a great deal of pain and suffering. But more important than anything is that these 8 days were crucial opportunities missed by the authorities. And I personally chalk it up to some serious mistakes and complete incompetence at all levels. The first mistake is that the authorities chose to send out massive search crews onto the family property in an attempt to hunt down the child that they had assumed had simply gotten lost. Weather delays didn't help matters either, and in the end, they turned up nothing. The ground search continued for days and even weeks, but why didn't authorities consider some alternatives? Big mistake. 1 month after her disappearance, Summer still hadn't been found. But finally, there is mention of a red Toyota Tacoma pickup truck with a ladder roof rack. Listen.
Authorities are still looking for the driver of a red or maroon Toyota Tacoma with a full bed ladder rack with white buckets in the back. That truck was seen in the area around the time Summer went missing.
Now, that's a pretty specific vehicle, so why haven't the authorities investigated this? I mean, how many Toyota Tacomas were in the area with a ladder rack? According to a sheriff's department fact sheet on the case, they had been looking for the owner of a vehicle that meets this description, which had been spotted in the area of the Wells' home prior to the day of the abduction. The driver was sought as a potential witness. To date, the driver has not come forward, they say, nor have hundreds of vehicles reported to authorities matching the description panned out. Now, this leads to the question, where is the FBI in all of this? Our world is in the midst of an artificial intelligence revolution. And our federal government isn't shy about squandering our tax dollars on huge data centers, where they've tracked and traced us for decades using massive amounts of data they've collected and stored on each of us without our permission. So, you mean to tell me they don't have the capacity to find a red or maroon Toyota Tacoma pickup truck with a ladder rack who may have been in the vicinity around the time of little Summer's disappearance? Especially someone with a criminal background? Money well spent, guys. The parents hold the key, especially Candace. So why haven't they spoken up? If Don or Candace knew they could be implicated in nefarious activities by pointing out this character to authorities, then that could be one reason to keep quiet. I find it interesting that Don said this about his wife.
It wasn't her fault, but...
No.
You know what I mean?
No. She's a good mother. She loves her children. She's not going to allow any situation like that. The biggest mistake she might have made is maybe choosing some wrong friends, which is, it happens. But other than that, no way.
Do you think any of those wrong friends could have something to do with it?
We don't know.
Another big problem with this case is that there was a social media frenzy. And according to authorities, they were deluged with leads and people with opinions developed from social media posts. All kinds of so-called experts swooped in to capitalize on this, and demonizing the Wells became a trending fad, as did the incredibly sadistic theories they brought with them. I can see that in light of the public pressure, Candace quickly shut down, having been betrayed by people she was hoping could help the family. And what's worse, these types of things tend to plant false ideas in all of our minds, burying key clues that could lead to the truth. From what I can see, there's been a bigger effort, at least on social media, to demonize the parents in this case than there has been to consider that maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe their child was abducted, which is what I believe. Will this man ever be caught? We know that people who do things like this are likely to do it again, potentially leading to a long series of crimes, hence the phrase serial killer. When I ask the Akashic Records just how many victims this man will have in his lifetime, like Little Summer, I get the number 7, and I see a combination of adult women and children. He's got the perfect MO. He's a friendly repairman with a repair truck who's oh so willing to give you a good rate on that expensive repair. He'll come right onto your roof, check out all your windows, and even come inside to see what needs to be done. And sometimes he comes back. Sadly, at the rate that the FBI and local sheriff's office are moving, it seems unlikely he'll ever be jailed for this or similar crimes in the future. However, be aware that authorities don't like to have open cases, and they could try to pin something on Don Wells just to get these dusty files off their desks. This is how these things work. Now, on an interesting side note, Summer Wells' aunt, Candace's sister, Rosemarie Bly, disappeared in 2009 after leaving her home in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin, to meet her cousin at a nearby bar. Rose told her husband she would return before midnight, but she never arrived at the bar and never made it home. Her car was found in a parking lot in Grantsburg 5 days later, with no keys or signs of foul play. Rose had previously mentioned head pain from falling off a horse, leading her mother to speculate about possible brain damage and wandering off, though this theory lacks evidence. At the time of her disappearance, Rose had 2 young children. Her husband filed for divorce after she went missing, which was granted by a Wisconsin circuit court, giving him full custody of their children. So what happened to Rosemarie? From what I can see, she was apparently involved in an affair or fling with a pale-skinned black man who was tall with a trim build. He murdered her and disposed of her body in a swampy location. It's that simple. I see that she willingly got into his car the night she disappeared, leaving her car behind. She put the seatbelt over her shoulder and locked it into place. They drove to a remote area, apparently to have sex, and there she was strangled and killed. Well, that's it for now. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the Summer Wells case. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you have any theories or insights? Share them below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.